Hello, everyone. Welcome to 20-Minute Takes. 20-Minute Takes is a virtual event series that we've been doing with Verizon Media, where we're tackling how marketers and buyers can and should honestly adjust their strategies in the current climate. We've got leading executives from Verizon Media on hand to share their expertise and insights with you guys. It's only 20 minutes because we want to get you informed and then we want to get you on with your day. I am Heidi Waldusky. I'm the Associate Publisher of Ad Age. And today we're bringing you yet in another series of what we're doing with Verizon Media. Today we're going to be talking about proving out performance. So here's what's happening, right? Marketers aren't sure if they should be marketing. And when that comes up, not only do we talk about marketing, but we're talking about marketing performance, our short-term goals, our long-term goals. And obviously consumer behaviors are changing and content consumption is on the rise. How do brands really re-examine their marketing and messaging approach to ensure that they're supporting their consumers when they need them most right now? Obviously, I'm going to use the word unprecedented. I'm going to use the word unpredictable. But thankfully, we have a fantastic expert here from Verizon Media today. We've got James Colborn, who is the head of Global Data Solutions from Verizon Media. Hi, James.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today. James, you are not in the U.S. Where are you coming from today?
I'm in London right now. Rainy London, actually.
Rainy London, I know. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So, James, we've got a big topic to talk about here today as we're talking about proving out performance. But before we get to our questions as we dive into this, can you tell us a little bit about your role at Verizon Media? Obviously, you are the data guy, which is more important than ever right now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what's happening over at Verizon Media.
Sure. So I work for Verizon Media, which is one of the divisions of Verizon. My focus is on what we call Global Data Solutions, which is taking all of our first-party data assets plus some of our third-party partner data as well, and turning that into solutions for advertisers. So it focuses on three key areas. Consumer insights, allowing us to understand behavior of consumers to then inform buying decisions. We have audience targeting, where we'll use data to be able to identify and target audiences that are most applicable, oftentimes identified from the consumer insights. And then finally, that's rounded out with campaign effectiveness work, whereby we make sure that we can use the data to be able to provide advertisers with the information and evidence they need to be able to determine the right thing to be able to do with their campaigns while they're running, and once they've finished running, to be able to inform the next buying decision.
Right. So obviously that is a really important job right now. Not that it wasn't important before, but obviously really important right now. I'm going to ask you, and guys, I want to make sure attention to our live audience. If you've got a question for James, if you're following along and you want to ask a question, feel free to drop it in our comments. We're going to do our best to get to some because we know you guys always have good questions for us. So, James, back to the data. Again, I'm going to use another cliche. I already used unprecedented. I already used unpredictable. But as we work to kind of navigate what this new normal is, as marketers are really thinking about what is that I can do as a business leader, as a marketer, even as a consumer, obviously this world is changing on a daily basis. What are some of the things that you're observing? What are you seeing in the data, and how is consumer behavior in particular shifting?
Well, I mean, I think we've seen, as we've all seen, sizable shifts in how people are, behaving based upon forced scenarios. I'm in my 45th day. I've been working from home in lockdown in the UK, so that's obviously changed my consumption patterns. And we've seen, key areas like, 95% of consumers are spending, time now consuming media. We've seen news, we've seen financial content, we've seen lifestyle content, all of the media that we have across our properties, which is echoed by other leading data providers as well, is seeing a huge uptick in terms of consumption of media, which makes a ton of sense as people want to be able to inform as to what's happening in very uncertain times. But we're also starting to work on now is, if you think about the evolution of this pandemic, and I say evolution of pandemic like I've got experience in what that's like before, we're all sort of, oh, this is kind of new.
Right.
We're now starting to look at what are things like consumer behaviors, as we come out of this pandemic, and what are people going to continue to be able to do, which may inform decisions that we make. And so there's still a huge amount of ambiguity and uncertainty in terms of what's and whens and hows and whos, which I think is causing a lot of anxiety amongst marketers, amongst advertisers. But a company called GWI and asked a few questions and surveys that said, would you continue to be able to do post-pandemic? And you see things like people saying, oh, I plan on exercising more. I plan on continuing to be able to consume streaming media more, consume video more, spending more time with my family. Family dynamic seems to have increased quite a lot. And so while I think that, it's a lot of unknown, we're seeing some really good sort of experiences that people are having now, which they may carry on doing, post-pandemic.
Right.
And I think that's important to note, as well as the fact that, people are just hungry for information now, which is also seen through consumption.
Right. Consumer intent has always been a huge learning area for marketers as we look to like, what are consumers intending to do? Where do their sentiments lie? So obviously that's must have been really interesting to see the shifts there. So based on what you're seeing, what kind of advice are you giving to marketers? I know at Ad Age, we've talked a lot about the importance of just being in market if you can, right? So, for brands, making sure that, they maintain a presence for their consumers. What advice are you giving them? Because now not only am I worried about perhaps marketing, but now I'm worried about even the marketing performance. How are you guiding brands through this process? How are you collaborating and partnering?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a few things. I mean, clearly we're talking to advertisers that, now's not the time to do nothing. And I think that, there's a ton of research that says from a short-term and a long-term approach, being in a position where doing nothing is an option shouldn't be there. The reason being is that, the consumers are looking to brands. We did some research on consumer attitudes to news and to content consumption through the coronavirus pandemic. And what was fascinating is that 60-70% of people are looking to to brands to continue to advertise through this period of time. More than 50% are saying that we want brands to continue to advertise as normal, because there is an element of normality to it in many respects, and from brands that they trust to be able to see that continue. And then there's a lot of research that would suggest that pandemic or recession, or however the two go hand in hand, there is a lot of research. I'll quote one that came from a company called PIMS, which I've written down here just to make sure I don't butcher the information, which is the profit impact marketing study that was done. I think the last time this stats came from 2008, 2009, which would suggest that marketers who don't advertise, through times of economic uncertainty, will lose market share. And it's suggested that you have a disproportionate gain in market share if you advertise through troublesome times. The reason being is that there's a phrase which is, you market your way out of a recession. People genuinely want to know that you're still in business. And so I think there's a balance between the two, which is, you want to be obviously mindful of economic scenarios, financial situations. Yet at the same time, if you think about the fact that, as we were talking about in a pre-part of our conversation, part of the challenge is that I don't even know which shops are open and are not open here. So if I need to get something which is important, and delivered online, it's important to be able to know, arguably at that point, that the company that you're looking to work with is still available, still trading, still operating. And so from simple aspects such as that all the way through to being able to, maintain a position, I think that's what we're sort of advising. So it's finding efficiency and being mindful, yet at the same time avoiding a do nothing scenario.
Right. I mean, we talked a lot about, everyone's kind of worried about what tone to strike, and obviously we're all sort of erring towards the side of empathetic. I mean, how could we not be? But there's also just a huge need for service messaging, the functional needs of, yes, I'm open. Here's what I'm delivering. Here's what I have. When you're thinking about short and long term, are you defining those time periods any differently? I mean, obviously, I don't know what day it is. Is it Tuesday? I think it's Tuesday. I don't know. So when I'm thinking about what is short term, what is long term, should I be thinking about that any differently in my mind?
To be honest, no. I think that I think there's a part of ambiguity there, which is desperately difficult to be able to say this is exactly how long these things are going to take. But obviously, short term is now. And so now being, activities and tactics that you would use in performance campaigns and marketing campaigns, especially where you're looking for that, heightened sense of efficiency with the media buy that you're doing, that exists through any kind of marketing campaign that runs consistently. I think that long term would suggest a horizon that has months and years associated with it. But at the same time, there's a lot of conversation around the short V-shaped recession, U-shaped recession. How long do those last for afterwards? What does it mean on economic certainty? I don't know. Not an economist to be able to answer those questions. So we do know that the genesis of a short-term scenario which we can work with. But at the same time, I think that now's the time, as content consumption changes quite a lot, is to be able to experiment and be able to start looking at ways of being able to engage consumers and give that value. And I think that that's what people are looking for right now. They're looking they're not looking for brands necessarily to be able to, just sell on a want state, but there's a need state, which is how do you help me? The surveys that we've done and the research, sort of people have been saying things like, help me be more productive during this time. Help me understand how you're going to, aid and assist me through this difficult sort of period of time. And so, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to be able to work through those scenarios.
That's really great. Thank you. So that's really important. Obviously, we just need to be moving forward and just sort of redefining our goals as we go along. So if you're just joining us, I am Associate Publisher of Ad Age, Heidi Waldusky. We are here with James Colborn, who is the Head of Global Data Solutions for Verizon Media. Today, we're talking about proving out performance and our fun 20-minute take series that we've been doing with the experts over at Verizon Media to bring you guys some good insights and expertise. Want to give a quick shout out to those of you checking us out online. We've got Carrie from Florida, Sergio from Colombia, Roald from Norway, Ridzuan from Malaysia, Ridzuan, Rauf from Bangladesh, Kadria from Canada, and Gaetano from Italy. It's always a very international crowd here at Ad Age. And obviously, James, you are in London today, so thank you for joining us. If you've got a question for James, we're talking about proving out performance, feel free to drop it in the comments, and we will do our best to get to them. So let's unpack kind of what we're talking about a bit further. So, we've been talking about the need to move forward. We've been talking about the need to, do marketing to really communicate our messages to our audience. How can we do that in an efficient way? When we're talking about programmatic buys, are there ways that we can, rethink about our targeting? Are there ways that we can think about our efficiency? Maybe I just don't have the budgets that I had, 3 weeks ago. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, just in a recent survey by the IAB, they're reporting that, 38% of advertisers plan on increasing their targeting tactics, which makes perfect sense. There is a huge advantage to being able to really pinpoint, the audience that you're looking to work with. And, if you're at this point looking for the most and heightened amount of efficiency, then obviously programmatic buying, which is, such an efficient opportunity, no matter what and what you're buying to start off with. But, looking at, matching data sets with the behaviors you're looking for, with the opportunities that you generally want to be able to, or the outcomes you're looking for, is going to be key. So it's really looking at key aspects of this. The first is, refining the audience, who you're really trying to target. What is the opportunity to be able to target them programmatically, and then also the messaging. So being able to make sure that you're using the right messaging with the advertising to be able to be conscious of the current scenario, and at the same time you want someone to be able to do something, and as research would suggest, you want to be able to help in that respect. You want to be able to look at your assessment against your competition, be able to make sure that you're positioning yourself right, to ensure that you've got that value, that differentiation, or that opportunity. So that's key. Optimization of ad campaigns is probably one of the key aspects of being able to look at how that's running. Is it working? And you can get into analysis paralysis by looking at things in too short a period of time, or you don't get a trend to be able to say, oh, well, I made one sale and yesterday I made no sales, so today's better than yesterday. That might not be enough time, but at the same time, you don't want to let something run for a long period of time without being diligent in terms of being able to look at how it's operating. And so being able to optimize and analyze campaigns against a very clearly defined set objective is without doubt, a key component. And then, it's just working through looking at new in-market opportunities. If you think about what we've talked about a little bit already, there are new content consumption patterns that we're seeing. There's new scenarios whereby people are, reading more, they're learning more, they're taking the opportunity to be able to use the connected ecosystem more than they ever have done. And so the other scenario is you want to go where the eyeballs are,
right,
in many respects. And so this may present new opportunities to be able to test, but to test in a scenario whereby testing always suggests inefficiency because it might not work, but at the same time testing may find a new audience or a new opportunity that you may not previously have worked with, and that might be a new media format. It might be moving from display and looking at native as an opportunity. It might be trying a different ad format or a different creative, but at the same time taking advantage of the fact that as we said, content consumption is up and it's up considerably, and so using that opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say for marketers, I think it's such an interesting time to learn more about your consumer set. I mean, it absolutely is fascinating to be able to see like what's going to come out of this. We do have a question from Stoic Media on YouTube. How do you envision out-of-home advertising evolving through COVID-19? We have talked about, maybe there's new ad formats, maybe there's new creatives types that I need to try. What are you seeing about maybe out-of-home advertising? Anything interesting there?
Well, I'm not informed enough to be able to give an authoritative position on that, but a lot of, it's a new area. It's something that we at Verizon Media embrace and have, an opportunity to be able to, again, test and be able to work through. One of the challenges that digital out of home presents itself is that you have to be out of home. And sorry to be crass in that sort of answer, but we're seeing fewer, people out and about in terms of foot traffic. But then the question comes back to, well, that's not going to last forever. And so then we get back to the core basics. Who are you trying to reach? What are you trying to tell them? And what's that value or differentiation you're offering them? And so just like anything, digital out of home will present you with, a group of people who will be, out of home for the first time in a long time, or they may have elements of a different mindset. It's interesting that when you think about a phased approach of going back, which you're hearing about in obviously China now moving into some of the European countries as well, there's a phased approach, and a lot of that creates complexity, and it creates complexity creates confusion, and it might be scary. And so if we're truly thinking about the fact that consumers are looking to advertisers and brands that they trust to be able to give them informative and help to be able to embrace change and be able to move forward, then if we're back out in market, that's just another great opportunity of being able to provide, a simplified and comforting message to consumers who are looking to be able to, embrace change, but at the same time get back to the norm. So I don't know beyond that. I think that, there's a lot of projections and predictions, but, you would need to be out of hope.
That's great. We're going to have one more question after this, but we'd like to do a fun little thing because we always like to humanize our guests, James. And we like to call this rapid fire. I don't have a graphic. We keep talking to the producers, like maybe I need I don't know. Let's all visualize in our minds a rapid fire graphic. I'm just going to ask you 5 fun questions just to help us get to know you a little bit better. So are you ready? Question number 1. What are you streaming right now?
We just subscribed to Disney Plus, so we're watching all of the Star Wars movies in order, hopefully culminating in May 4th.
Oh, you better get a move on. May the 4th.
Yeah, haven't got many days left to go. It's one every night, it feels like right now.
What is your go-to work from home outfit? Is it the rest of the suit that goes with this lovely vest you have on here?
I dressed down for today. I thought it was more casual. Usually I've got a tie and a jacket, but no, right now it's jeans and a shirt. Pretty casual.
Great. And as we're talking about, obviously brands letting know consumers what they're doing online, what's the last thing you ordered online?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. It is a canister of barbecue gas or grill gas for you barbecue aficionados, because except for today, the sun started to shine, so I want to be able to get outside and grill outside.
Nice. And then have you discovered anything about yourself thanks to Zoom? It's been a lot of video conferencing.
Yeah, fastest finger first. So basically, I have been, first, I love the surveys. Anyone who puts a survey out there, I'm like right in there. And then frustrated when they don't share the results. So, yeah.
Okay. And then where is the first place you will go when social distancing hopefully is relaxed or at least over?
Yeah, I will be going fishing. I love fishing, and it's one of those things that I haven't been able to do for a while. And so now the sun's out and the weather's nice. I want to get out.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Okay, thank you for entertaining us with our rapid fire questions. So one last question. So we've talked about really making, it's important for brands to focus on making our consumers' lives easier, right? But also we have to think about maximizing revenue and rebuilding business at this time. So what advice do you have for brands who are really hoping to improve that pricing efficiency and to ultimately drive better ROI as we look towards the future?
Well, I mean, I think that, we've talked about the programmatic buying ecosystem being complex, efficient, but there's an element of complexity that comes with it as well. So, I mean, I think that we need to be able to sort of look at, the steps that can be taken to be sure that you have, the most efficient simple sort of, conversation around this. So first thing is, if you're talking to a DSP, where's the supply coming from? You want to be able to make sure that efficiency comes from being able to really know your audience and knowing where that supply is coming from. Independent verification of cost. I think that's really important to be able to know where that is. Any additional fees, management fees, understanding the fee structure of the entire waterfall of costs that are associated with programmatic buying will give you a far greater handle in terms of being able to know where that efficiency can come from. And then being able to control, the supply sources. Do you have the opportunity of being able to control, nominate, choose where that supply is coming from, to be able to, again, just work through some of those points that we made earlier, which was the efficiency. We want efficiency in our buy, and in many respects that comes from choice, and choice to be able to test, but at the same time to be able to control and then optimize. And so that's there. So, I think that bringing in a little bit of machine learning and letting the technology do, the job for you as well. So, is there any way of being able to identify supply path optimization? I think that's, a key component as you look at it. Are there ways of being able to control your bidding, make sure you're not overpaying, automated bid shading or something along those lines in a second place priced auction would be particularly key to be able to make sure that you're not, paying over the odds for the impressions that you're buying or the supply. And then lastly, scaling of supply, make sure that, you're giving opportunity, the, inventory and supply, the opportunity to be able to, work with the audiences that you selected for your targeting. So, needless to say, I think that it comes down to looking at every aspect of your buy and just being able to ensure that you have every aspect of efficiency weaved in, and then the control and the choice to be able to optimize and to work with it. I think that, one of the inherent challenges that complexity brings is the confusion, and it's like, oh, well, it's just too easy to let it run or leave it, or not do anything. And in this instance, it's sort of the greater level of transparency and visibility you have in terms of how your media dollars, your advertising budgets are being spent, and the greater control you have, the more you can actually continue to spend and to advertise with confidence.
Right. It seems like right now automation and efficiency can really be a marketer's friend if we just kind of let it ride, so to speak. So thank you, James. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's hard to believe our 20 minutes always goes by so fast. Really appreciate the expertise and insights you were able to bring our audience today. Thank all of you who joined on adage.com and our social platforms. We do have more 20-minute takes with Verizon coming up. Our next one is on Thursday, May 14th at 3 p.m. That's going to be Verizon Media's head of native sales, Missy Schnurstein, with our Ad Age Studio 30 editor, John Dioso. We're also going to be having one on May 26th. We're going to be discussing innovation with Verizon Media's head of video product management, Darren Lepke, and he's going to be in conversation with our publisher, Josh Golden. Again, James, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Any last parting words of advice for our thoughtful marketers tuning in today?
Yes, and that is, don't let up looking at what's happening. I know that it's getting a bit, excessive in terms of the reports and the information that you can receive and read about COVID-19 insights, coronavirus insights. But at the same time, what's going to happen now is we're going to start seeing, the indications that, we're going to see the other side, the recovery, the, indicators that are going to help us, move forward with arguably confidence and I hope excitement that there's a lot of opportunity. So keep paying attention to what research is coming, because I think it's going to get more and more positive as it goes on, and that's a real that's something that we should all be aware of.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me, by the way.
Thank you again. And thank you for ending on an optimistic note. I feel like we could all use a little bit of that these days. So thank you again. Thanks everyone for tuning in.